Airhead is a very unique puzzle platformer with metroidvania elements that really deserves a lot more attention because of its overall creative game design. The main concept is solving puzzles and navigating through this interesting world with this head you can detach at will and constantly need to fill with air to survive. I really think this mix of puzzle solving and unlocking new abilities by metroidvania-like exploration works very well, and while I can't call it a full-fledged metroidvania because backtracking is barely needed, I really enjoyed how the world was interconnected and how certain shortcuts made traversal a lot easier. I honestly didn't expect the world of this game to be so big. It took me a bit more than 7 hours to finish this game, and this is pretty unique for a puzzle game. There is barely any hand-holding. Only a few new upgrades are explained by text, but most puzzles are actually solved by logical thinking or visual cues, and you can only make it a bit easier by turning on hints to give you vague clues. I'm not saying this game is difficult, but it did challenge my brain a few times, and solving some specific puzzles almost took me like 30 minutes to figure out. You start out as this little creature, and eventually you find this head that you constantly have to refill with air, otherwise you will have to start over. You have no health bar. Instead, you have this air meter that depletes over time, and refilling your head with air also saves the game at the same time. You would think this gimmick is going to start to become annoying after a while, but I actually didn't mind it. It was really well implemented in the overall game design, and seeing your head shrink over time was really fun and sometimes needed to solve puzzles. I honestly really enjoyed the overall gameplay. The Airhead mechanic made for a lot of creative puzzles and memorable moments, and the developers keep adding all these new gimmicks, like strong winds and different machinery to make sure the gameplay doesn't become boring or repetitive. You will also come across a few interesting creatures that have their own little gimmick, like being afraid of light or trying to steal your head. I must say, these encounters weren't always the smoothest experience. Their AI can feel a bit clunky, and this made the puzzle solving a bit frustrating and tedious sometimes. I also had a bit of trouble with certain jumps. Your jump height didn't look it was high enough to actually be able to make these jumps. But after a lot of tries, I finally managed to grab the edge of a platform. You can also only grab objects without the head, but you need the head to keep your abilities or to survive. And this mechanic can be a bit annoying as well, because if you drop the head too close to you, you accidentally grab the head and not the object you are trying to interact with. Or it can also be the other way around. Another minor gripe I have has to do with how the level design can be sometimes. While I like them visually speaking, there are these 2.5D sections, and some layered platforms can be really annoying to jump on, or sometimes it's not clear there's another layer in the first place. And that's why I was stuck for a really long time at some point. They can also break the game if you aren't careful enough. I also had some small technical issues with sudden frame rate drops and music just disappearing for a really long time. So I do think this game could use a few patches to make it a more polished experience. So in general, Airhead is a really unique experience. Despite its technical flaws here and there, the overall gameplay is really creative and exploring this interesting world is really enjoyable. I never got bored by the many puzzles I had to solve, and while I did get a bit annoyed by some creatures' AI, it wasn't enough to make me stop enjoying this game. Airhead is a breath of fresh air, and it saddens me that it doesn't get the attention it deserves. Once again, it's not a perfect game, and certain puzzles are really going to test your patience or going to challenge your brain, but it's all worth it in the end. I'm not sure if it will end up as one of my favorite games of this year, but it's for sure the most creative game I have played so far this year. I highly recommend this game if you would like to try something different. I was really impressed by how well it manages to combine puzzle solving and metroidvania-like exploration. And the fact that its world is really intriguing and full of interesting creatures makes it even more recommendable. So be ready to literally use your head in many different ways to overcome all these challenges and memorable encounters, and find out if preserving this companionship is worth fighting for.